The fact that I can do this in a reverb plugin is ridiculous. Today is a huge day in the audio world. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Today is a momentous occasion. Now, what has me so excited, so happy that I put the cow hat back on? Well, this is something that I've been keeping secret for quite a bit of time now. But now the cat is out of the bag and I can finally tell you about something very exciting from one of my favorite pro audio brands. Now, AudioScape makes amazing recording studio hardware. They make this compressor that's back here at my desk. It's a stereo bus compressor. I use it all the time. They make EQs, they make preamps, they make lots of gear that fits in a desk like this. But for the very first time, AudioScape has actually created a plugin. And I was lucky enough to get to beta test this plugin. Now, if you don't know what a beta test is, that just means you get a product before it's actually available to the public. You get to use it for a while and you report back any errors or any crashes, things like that, and just offer feedback on the product. So I got to do that with this plugin, and I also got to make a pretty solid handful of presets for this plugin. I was actually just as surprised as you might be to find out that they made a reverb. But what didn't surprise me is that this reverb plugin is so much different from any other reverb plugin that I've used. So let's go ahead and hop on the computer and I'll show you what it's all about. So this plugin, this reverb plugin that AudioScape has put together that just came out today, by the way, I'm gonna link it in the bio. You can buy it. It's not an affiliate link. It's not sponsored. It's not nothing. I just really like it and I wanna show you guys. So I went ahead and made a bunch of presets for different genres and for different instruments. And when you think analog modeling, like this is a Spring Reverb that this is modeling, you usually are gonna think like blues rock because that's what most analog modeling demos and people are making stuff for that. But I went ahead and made a bunch of like EDM, hip hop, metal, rock, all kinds of different presets. So let me just walk you through some of the ones that I put together for myself, and you can really see how versatile this plugin is. So I've got an EDM track that I started here, and I've got this UK Garage build-up piano preset that I put on this piano. And I also have a dancey garage drums preset on the drums. And you'll notice the knobs are set to 100 right now, but when I hit play, they go back down to like 20%. So I actually automated this to go up. So check out what happens when you do that. So basically what I did there is I made the reverb wetter and wetter and wetter, and then at the end I actually faded out the piano and the drums, so you have this really airy, spacey sound that's going on, and then it all cuts out, and when the drop comes in, we go super dry again. So that contrast is actually really awesome, and automating the parameters on this reverb is really useful. All right, so we've shown that this XL-305R can EDM, but the real question is, can it gent? Now, I went ahead and made this preset for heavy, really loud breakdowns, but it's not for during the breakdown because I want that to be pretty dry. So I've got a preset called A Breakdown Is Coming Drums and A Breakdown Is Coming Guitar. But then when the breakdown actually hits, it's gonna go dry. So check this out. So as you can see, we've got these super wet drums. Now let me bypass that. So it makes a huge difference, and the way that I was able to EQ this actually makes it sound really cool and really kind of small and squished and almost lo-fi. And I didn't really push the input very hard, and the mix is pretty high up. You get this like breakdown kind of thing going on. And by the way, I'm using like royalty-free loops because I don't want to go to jail. So that's what these are. Now, obviously that is an extreme example of what you can use this reverb for on the drums, but if you just want like a low-key, springy sort of reverb, put them on auxes, and then you go ahead and send a little bit of your drums to it. And then what I've done before that is put an EQ and cut out some of the lows so that your kick drum isn't gonna rattle around. So here's what that sounds like. So that's with the reverb, and then here's without it. So as you can see, it just makes like a nice bright kind of springy reverb. Obviously it's a spring reverb, but it really just brings the life to these drums that they're kind of missing. And obviously you can mix these to taste. That's why they're on a bus instead of being the actual reverb on the track. Now, one thing that's cool about this is having the input drive options. You can actually kind of grit up your tracks inside this reverb instead of having to use like a distortion plugin or saturation, which is really fun. And so for that example, I've got this preset that I put together called Wonderclav, and it's pushing, you can see it's pushing these red lights on. Here's without it. And here's with it. So I think that just has like a really cool character. It's really rich sounding and just brings the funk up to a whole other level. Now, if we're talking about modern production, you obviously cannot forget about hip hop and rap. I love listening to hip hop and rap beats, and I made a whole bunch of presets that have to do with that. So I've got a preset called Washed Out Outro. You can also use it as an intro, don't worry. And then we've got a totally dry, no reverb sample here, and then it goes to one that I call Liven Up Your Loops. So that's nice and quiet, washed out. Totally dry here, just normal. And then this is Liven Up Your Loops. Just like a little wet, a little sparkle. So if you make beats, like this is an awesome reverb for that because you can EQ within it, you can get a little drive, you can wash things out. Here's another one that I put together, again, with just these loops, but I made a preset called Flip Samples Like 40. It's like a song starter, kind of lo-fi enhancer sort of thing. You'll recognize it. The fact that I can do this in a reverb plugin is ridiculous. So this is the wet 40 OVO preset. And then totally dry kicks in. I mean, the fact that we're doing that with a reverb plugin only, wild. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this thing is super cool. Now, obviously, when we talk spring reverb, we got to talk about guitar. So I've got one here called Following the Maps. It's like a semi-wet pop sort of thing. So that's wet. Let me bypass it. And bring it back. So this one I've got the 600 boosted up a little bit. I actually cut out a lot of 2K and 6K, so I really just want some of that kind of warmth, that mids heavy warmth coming from the reverb. I think it sounds awesome on this guitar. And then I also have one here that I call Lo-Fi Intro Guitar, which is kind of, you know, lo-fi hip hop beats sort of inspired. But you can also use it on like emo beats, anything like that. So that's wet. Here's without it. Here's with it. So on this, I've got the mix turned up all the way to 100, and I'm cutting out a lot of that, like anything over the high mid 6K. So we're really just emphasizing, again, that kind of boxy, warm sound. And just using this as like a lo-fi plug-in effect is so cool to me. Like doing this with a reverb is actually awesome. and it really just brings the whole thing together. Now, the last thing I want to show you is actually this little panning trick that I put together. So I've got this keyboard. It's just a little Juno loop. It sounds cool, but let's say you want to have it double tracked, but you only have one. So a little utility preset that I put together, I'm calling it Cool Stereo Keys Trick Pan Left and Pan Right. So you turn that preset on, and then you pan this one to the left. This one has the pan right version, pan it all the way to the right. And then when you play those together, you get this really wide, kind of very swimmy sort of reverb sound. Let me show you. And then you add some drums. I mean, you can't beat that. Sounds awesome. So you go from your sad single track keyboard to just this whole wide panned, super hard pan sort of thing going on that I think is really cool. So the fact that all of the sounds that I just showed you all are coming out of literally one reverb plugin is absolutely wild. From hip hop to rock to R&B to really everything, you can really get so many awesome sounds out of this plugin, which is why I think you should check it out. I'm gonna link down to AudioScape in the description so you can go get a copy for yourself. If you want any of the presets that I showed here and they're not in the final version, just let me know. I'll figure out a way to get them to you because I want you to check this thing out and just use it. Now, obviously, I love this plugin, if you couldn't tell. I'm super excited that it's finally out, and I really think you should go grab a copy. I'm gonna put a link in the description to where you can go get it, but if you wanna take a look at some of AudioScape's hardware, then check out this video right here.